Let me tell you something that most people will never say to your face, but you need to hear it more than anything else today. If your job is growing faster than you are, you're in trouble. If your income is outpacing your wisdom, if your reputation is growing while your discipline is shrinking, if the world is watching you succeed but inside you're eroding, then you're walking on a rope that's about to snap. And it won't matter how talented you are. It won't matter what your title says, how many degrees are framed on your wall, or what car you pull up in. Because success without self-development is the beginning of the end. You see, anyone can be busy. Anyone can hustle. Anyone can look impressive in the short term. But very few people will take the time daily to chisel away at their flaws, refine their thinking, expand their perspective, and fortify their mindset. Most people work hard on their job. They clock in, they perform, they meet deadlines. They build a resume. But they forget the most important work, the work they do on themselves. Because you are the foundation of every result in your life. You are the engine behind every outcome. And if you neglect the engine, the vehicle breaks down no matter how shiny the outside looks. So today, I want to challenge you not to work harder for your boss, not to work harder for recognition, not to work harder for money, but to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, harder on your habits than your paycheck, harder on your values than your goals, harder on your discipline than your deadlines, harder on your growth than your grind. Because your job may pay you by the hour, but your growth pays you for life. Let's start with the mind, because everything begins there. Before a man builds a fortune, he builds a philosophy. Before a woman becomes a leader, she becomes a learner. And before you command the respect of the world, you command the truth inside yourself. You've got to reprogram the way you think daily. Your mind is not a one-time upgrade. It's a constant renewal. You've got to read the books that stretch your thinking, not just the ones that confirm it. You've got to ask the questions that scare you, not just the ones that comfort you. You've got to expose yourself to ideas that challenge your ego, test your assumptions, and push your limits. If your mind is average, your life will be average, even if you get lucky. But if your mind is elite, your future will bend to the strength of your character. Because here's the truth. Your job gives you tasks, but your mind gives you vision. And vision always outlives tasks. Work on your vision until it makes the work irrelevant. Until the job becomes the tool, not the goal. And now belief. You have to believe so deeply in your value that the world can't help but notice it. But here's the thing. Belief isn't given. It's built. Belief is what happens when you keep your word to yourself so many times, you can't help but trust who you've become. When you show up on the days you don't feel like it. When you act with integrity, when no one is watching. When you choose the long road. When shortcuts scream your name. That's how belief is formed, not through compliments, not through luck, but through consistent self-respect. The people who achieve greatness don't do it because the world believed in them. They do it because they believed in themselves before there was any evidence, and then they created the evidence. Next comes clarity. Clarity isn't something you wait for, it's something you fight for. Because life is noisy. The world throws distractions at you every second. Notifications, expectations, comparisons. And if you're not intentional, you'll lose yourself trying to keep up with people who are already lost. So work harder on clarifying who you are than you do chasing who they are. Define your values. Write your non-negotiables. Understand what truly matters to you and then build your life around that. Clarity isn't about knowing what you want once. It's about reminding yourself of it daily until it becomes a fire that consumes everything that doesn't belong. Now, purpose, don't skip this. Purpose is not a passion, it's not a job title. It's not something you find on a weekend retreat. It's something you decide. You don't stumble into it. You claim it. You breathe life into it. You pour your energy into something bigger than your ego. When you work harder on your purpose than your paycheck, everything changes. You stop chasing validation and start building impact. You stop faking confidence and start living conviction. You stop asking, what do I get from this? And start asking, what do I give through this? Purpose is the power plant. It gives electricity to everything else in your life, your job, your relationships, your energy, your focus. But only if you feed it. Then discipline. Now, this is where most people fall. They start strong. They post about it. They buy the planner. They set the goals. But when the mood fades, so does the action. Why? Because they never trained their discipline to be stronger than their emotion. Discipline is working on yourself when it's inconvenient. It's showing up when the world gives you every excuse not to. It's doing the hard thing, the boring thing, the necessary thing over and over until it becomes who you are. Your job might require discipline, sure, but your life, your legacy demands it. Discipline builds the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Now let's talk action. Because no amount of wisdom, belief, clarity, or purpose means anything without movement. You have to act on what you know. You have to act on what you say you want. You have to act even when you're uncertain, especially when you're uncertain. You don't wait for courage to act. You act until courage shows up. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards execution. So while everyone else is planning, doubting, and scrolling, you move. You write the book. You launch the idea. You make the call. You do the rep. You invest the time. Every step forward is a vote for the future you're building. But here's the key. Don't act for applause. Act from principle. Don't chase outcomes. Create identity. Act not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Now, gratitude. This is the anchor, the grounding, the soil where everything else grows. Gratitude doesn't mean you settle. It means you see. You see the lessons in the loss. You see the opportunity in the work. You see the growth in the struggle. You see the gift in every breath. When you practice gratitude, you don't just elevate your mood, you elevate your perspective. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. And from that place, you build more. You don't become complacent, you become content with progress. You work not from scarcity, but from abundance. You give because you know you have more than you think. You grow because you're grateful for the chance to improve. And now, adaptability. Because life will change, plans will break, people will disappoint you. And if you don't adapt, you'll drown. Working harder on yourself means preparing your mind to pivot, not panic. It means letting go of how it was and stepping boldly into how it must be. The people who survive aren't always the smartest, they're the most adaptable. They learn, they evolve, they shift without losing their soul. They stay anchored in values, but flexible in methods. And finally, resilience. This is your armor, because there will be days when nothing makes sense, when your efforts don't get results, when you feel like giving up, when the mirror looks like a stranger, and that's when the real work begins. Resilience isn't how loud you roar when you're winning. It's how quiet you grind when you're bleeding. It's the ability to stand up after 10 knockdowns, dust yourself off, and whisper again. Work harder on your bounce back than your breakthrough. Because life isn't about what happens to you. It's about what happens in you and then flows through you. The world is watching the show, but the work, the real work, it's happening in the dark, when no one is clapping, when no one is posting about you, when no one is paying attention. And that's where greatness is born. That's where character is forged. That's where leaders are built. That's where legacies are written. Not in the job, not in the status, but in the quiet, sacred commitment to work harder on yourself than anything else in this world. So, go back to the basics. Not because you're weak, but because you're building a foundation no storm can shake. Refuse to coast. Refuse to blame. Refuse to wait. You were not made to survive. You were made to rise. And every single day is a chance, not just to do your job, but to do yourself justice. And if you're willing to rise not once, but every single morning with resolve in your breath and discipline in your bones, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to doubt, to fear, to mediocrity. You see, most people live their entire lives reacting, reacting to pressure, reacting to opinions, reacting to circumstances, and they wonder why their life feels like a storm they can't control. But the one who works harder on themselves than they do on their job, that person creates the weather. That person doesn't ask for favorable winds, they become the wind. They don't wait for perfect timing. They act with perfect clarity. And it's that internal work, that unseen grind, that mental weightlifting no one applauds, which determines whether your success is temporary or transformational. Let's make something very clear. There is no finish line to this. You don't arrive at self-development. You don't complete the course and collect a certificate in becoming unstoppable. You build yourself daily. Every decision, every thought, every moment of resistance, every moment of honesty. Because the person you become is not born from comfort, but from choice. The choice to study when others scroll. The choice to rest with intention, not escape from responsibility. The choice to apologize when you're wrong, to stand firm when you're right, to face your flaws with courage and polish them into virtues. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you spent the next 6 months not trying to impress the world, but trying to elevate your worth? What would change if you poured your focus not into changing your career, but into changing your character? What would your life look like if you decided with conviction that you are your most valuable investment? Not your house, not your bank account, not your social following. You, your mind, your body, your ethics, your essence. Let me give you the truth. Nobody markets to you. Self-work is unglamorous. There's no loud applause when you choose the salad over the fast food. There's no standing ovation when you spend the evening journaling instead of numbing out on entertainment. There's no viral post when you confront your weaknesses, clean up your habits, and take radical ownership of your mess. But behind every quiet moment of discipline is a loud future screaming with possibility. Because when you sharpen you become the kind of person that opportunity seeks out. Not because of how you look, or how smooth you talk, or how many hours you work, but because of how deep your roots run when the winds of chaos blow. Let's talk about the roots for a moment. Most people build skyscrapers on sand. They decorate, they promote, they celebrate, and then wonder why their life collapses at the first quake. You've got to dig deeper than that. You've got to excavate the beliefs that hold you back. You've got to tear out the weeds of your excuses, your past narratives, your victim thinking. You've got to rebuild the foundation from self-trust, from integrity, from internal power. It's slow work, quiet work, but it's the kind of work that builds unshakable men and women. Because here's the reality. When you work harder on yourself than your job, you become employable for life by any dream, any mission, any destiny. Why? Because your worth is not rented, it's refined. Your value isn't conditional. It's cultivated. And your power? It's no longer reactive to the world's validation. It's originated from within. People will wonder how you keep winning. They'll say, you're lucky. They'll think it's talent. They'll assume it's natural. But you'll know the truth. You've been working in silence, in darkness, in daily decisions nobody sees. And the fruits they see are the result of roots they never studied. Now I want to speak to the exhausted part of you, the part that's tired of pushing, the part that questions if this internal work even matters. It does, because what you're building is not just success, it's substance, and substance endures. Substance is what remains when the lights go out. Substance is what walks in when the crowd walks away. Substance is what you fall back on when life collapses everything else. Success without substance is a sandcastle. But success with substance, that's a fortress. And only those who work harder on themselves than on their resume ever build one. You don't need to impress the world. You need to impress upon yourself that your time here matters. That your life is not a game to be watched, but a canvas to be painted. With bold strokes, with vivid color, with intention behind every brush. Let me tell you, you're not too late. You're not too far gone. You're not too flawed. to rebuild. If you've got breath, you've got bricks. If you've got vision, you've got a plan. If you've got hunger, you've got a future. But you've got to build it from within. Your job will teach you skills. The world will teach you trends. But only you can teach yourself who you are becoming. And if you're wise, if you're serious about a life that means something, you'll stop outsourcing that responsibility. You'll pick up the hammer, you'll lay the brick, you'll write the words. You'll rise again and again and again. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because you've decided, I will not let this world outwork me on me. And that, my friend, is the beginning of unstoppable. Unstoppable isn't a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to keep showing up. A decision to keep growing, even when no one is watching. A decision to build something eternal in a world addicted to the temporary. You become unstoppable, not because you never fail, but because you refuse to stop becoming. And when you carry that mindset, everything around you starts to change. You don't chase success anymore. You attract it. You don't beg for opportunities. You create them. You don't fear rejection because your value is no longer up for debate. You've already voted for yourself in silence with action. People will start noticing something about you even if they can't name it. They'll feel your presence differently. They'll sense your clarity, your depth, your quiet confidence. Because you'll no longer be walking around trying to be someone. You'll simply become someone. You'll walk into rooms not hoping to be chosen, but knowing you belong not because of ego, but because you've done the work. And that's the secret most never learn. The work you do on yourself becomes the energy people feel from you. It's in your posture, your tone, your decisions, your habits, your pace. You no longer rush. You no longer chase. You no longer prove. You simply are. You become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation because your habits are stronger than your moods. You become the kind of person who doesn't need validation because your values speak louder than the noise. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to impress because your essence is undeniable. That's what happens when you work harder on yourself than your job. Your life becomes a reflection of your internal world. And when that world is fortified, pure, and intentional, the external world has no choice but to mirror it. So the question is not, how do I get ahead? The question is, who must I become to deserve what I seek? Because you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you want excellence, become excellence. If you want respect, walk with integrity. If you want peace, master your reactions. If you want wealth, think like a steward. If you want love, lead with love. And if you want power, real power, don't look outward. Look inward. Now, let's be honest. This journey isn't for everyone. Most people would rather complain than change. They'd rather escape than confront. They'd rather wear the mask than reveal the truth. Because it's easier to build an image than to build identity. But that's not you. You wouldn't be here now listening to this if you weren't ready. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to stop waiting. Ready to stop negotiating with mediocrity. And start becoming the person your future is begging for. So don't let this moment pass as inspiration. Let it be your ignition. Don't just nod and say, that's true. Make it true in the quiet hours that no one else sees, because that's where your life will shift. Not in the public, not in the ceremony, but in the repetition, in the decision to wake up early, to journal when it's easier to scroll, to say no when it's unpopular, to lift when you're sore, to listen when your ego wants to speak, to learn when you think you already know. This isn't about changing your life in a day. It's about deciding who you are and proving it daily. So, how do you begin? You begin by looking in the mirror and asking, what part of me needs to grow today? And you attack that part with love and intensity. You begin by carving out 1 hour a day, just one, where your focus is on growth, not tasks. Reading, writing, reflecting, planning, practicing, training. 1 hour where the world doesn't get a say, only you do. And slowly but surely your identity begins to shift. Not in loud leaps, but in quiet layers. Until one day you look around and realize the world didn't change, you did. And because you changed, your results changed. Your relationships changed. Your career changed. Your decisions changed. Your life changed because you stopped outsourcing your power. You stopped being a product of your environment and became the architect of your environment. You built something the storms couldn't take. You built something the critics couldn't shake. You built something the failures couldn't break. You built you. So the next time someone asks you, what do you do? Don't just tell them your job. Tell them the truth. You work harder on yourself than anything else. Because when you do, everything else takes care of itself. And that daily work of becoming is the most important job you will ever have. You see, the world keeps telling you to hustle harder, grind faster, rise earlier, sleep less. But here's the deeper truth they don't say loud enough. It's not about how hard you work, it's about who is doing the work. Because if the wrong version of you is hustling, all you're doing is building a future that won't fit you. You'll chase goals that don't fulfill you. You'll attract people who don't value you. You'll make money doing things that steal your spirit. And at the end of it all, you'll be holding trophies that don't matter, wondering why you still feel empty. But when the right version of you shows up, the one who's aligned, disciplined, awake, intentional, the work becomes sacred. The results become a reflection of truth. And success becomes a byproduct, not a pursuit. That's why your greatest work is not in what you build out there. It's in what you build in here, inside your mindset, inside your emotional intelligence, inside your belief system, inside your principles. Because jobs come and go, markets change, titles expire. But the person you become, that stays, that compounds, that shapes every room you enter. So let the world keep rushing. Let them chase status. Let them sprint on treadmills of burnout. You build slow. You build deep. You build right. Because you're not here to impress. You're here to impact. And impact starts with the discipline to sit with yourself, to face the uncomfortable, to question the stories, to upgrade your habits, to rewrite your narrative. You stop outsourcing your accountability. You stop blaming your boss, your past, your family, your country, your circumstances. You take the steering wheel, not because it's fair, but because it's yours. That's what it means to work harder on yourself than your job. It means you value identity over image, character over clout, depth over decoration. You realize that legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you live right now. Every word, every interaction, every choice. You become a walking example of what's possible, not by talking about it, but by being it. And yes, it's hard. It's hard to hold yourself to that standard. It's hard to rise when you're tired. It's hard to stay grounded when the world is shouting. It's hard to keep pushing when the rewards are invisible. But you don't do it for the easy. You do it for the evolution. Because when you work harder on yourself than you do on your job, you don't just make money. You make meaning. You don't just build income, you build impact. You don't just earn rewards, you earn respect. Starting with the person in the mirror. And that is priceless. So let me leave you with this. Every morning, you wake up with a choice. You can either continue being the version of you the world has shaped, or you can become the version you were born to build. And if you choose the latter, if you choose the path of growth, depth, and internal mastery, you'll find that the job, the income, the recognition, all of it will come. But not because you chased it, because you became it. You became the kind of person success couldn't ignore. You became the kind of soul the world needed. You became the kind of mind storms couldn't shake. And all of it All of it started the moment you said, from this day forward, I will work harder on myself than I do on anything else. Because you are your greatest masterpiece. So build wisely, build daily, build relentlessly. And the world will watch in awe as you rise. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you're casting a vote, not with your politics, not with your voice, but with your actions. Every morning when you wake up and reach for your phone or your purpose, that's a vote. Every time you hit snooze or rise with fire, that's a vote. Every time you choose comfort over clarity, distraction over discipline, delay over decision, you're voting. You're voting for the kind of life you will live. You're voting for the kind of person you will become. Because your habits are never neutral. They are either working for you or against you. They are either building you or breaking you. They are either preparing you or paralyzing you. There is no middle. There is no pause. There is no just this once. There is only direction, forward or backward. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And most people, without realizing it, are engineering a life they will one day beg to escape, one small unconscious action at a time. Habits shape your destiny in silence. They don't shout, they whisper. They don't command, they nudge. But over time, those nudges become a path, and that path becomes a prison or a promise. And that is the truth most ignore. Your habits are not just routines. They are votes for your future. They are the architects of your outcome. And if you're not paying attention, you might be building a reality you never meant to live in. You don't need dramatic change. You need consistent alignment. You need to look your life in the eye and ask, what am I practicing? Because what you practice, you become. If you practice procrastination, you become unreliable. If you practice gratitude, you become abundant. If you practice self-discipline, you become unstoppable. Most people are rehearsing the wrong identity. They say they want success, but they practice escape. They say they want excellence, but they practice excuses. They say they want greatness, but their habits scream mediocrity. And habits never lie. They reveal, they expose, they predict. If I want to know where your life is going, I don't need to ask about your dreams. I need to watch your days. Because your future doesn't live in your desires, it lives in your daily disciplines. Do you rise with intention? Do you guard your time? Do you move when it's hard? Do you finish what you start? Or do you float, reacting, surviving, making just enough effort to stay afloat, but never enough to soar? Every master you admire, every leader you envy, every story that stirred your soul, it was not luck. It was not magic. It was not genetics. It was habitual excellence. Small things done well. Repeated, refined, protected, elevated. They didn't wake up extraordinary. They became it one disciplined action at a time. And you can too. But you must start by breaking the myth that success is dramatic. It isn't. Success is not a single moment. It's not the applause. It's not the stage. It's not the finish line. Success is silent. It's boring. It's hidden in the hours where no one is watching. It's built in the early mornings, in the quiet repetitions, in the unglamorous work. You want transformation? Start with what you do when no one's clapping, because that's the real you. That's the version the world eventually meets and believes. So audit your habits. Audit your mornings. Audit your thinking. Audit what you do when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're tempted. That's where your destiny is decided. Do you reach for distraction or for discipline? Do you react or do you respond? Do you run from the hard thing or do you lean into it? And most importantly, do your habits reflect the future you say you want? You say you want to be wealthy, but are you practicing financial wisdom or financial fantasy? You say you want to be fit, but are you moving daily or just watching others do it? You say you want to lead, but are you training your mind, refining your words, controlling your emotions? If not, then your habits are betraying you. And every day you keep those habits alive, you are volunteering for a life beneath your potential. You are choosing frustration. You are choosing limitation. You are choosing to stay small. And I know that's not who you are. That's who you've practiced being. But the good news? Practice can change. Identity can evolve. Trajectories can be altered by the power of new habits. Because habits don't just shape behavior, they shape belief. You don't believe in yourself first and then act accordingly. You act differently, and then belief begins to form around your new behavior. Confidence doesn't come from thinking, it comes from execution. You build confidence when you do hard things. When you say you'll show up and then you show up. When you do what you said you would long after the mood has left the room. And this is where most fall. They confuse motivation with momentum. They think they need to feel good to act. But the pros know you act your way into feeling. You move your way into confidence. You stack wins until belief is no longer theory, it's identity. So stack the wins. Stack them in silence. Stack them in struggle. Stack them when no one notices. Stack them when you don't even notice. Because the compound interest of small aligned actions will always outperform the grand gestures of the inconsistent. The world is filled with people who start strong and fade fast. But the ones who last, the ones who lead, the ones who win, are the ones whose habits do the heavy lifting when their energy is gone. It's not about intensity. It's about identity and motion. You become what you endure, and habits help you endure. They keep you moving when your mind wants to stop. They anchor you when emotion tries to hijack your discipline. They remind you, this is what we do. This is who we are. You see, weak habits whisper comfort. Strong habits scream destiny. So choose carefully. Every habit you keep is a prophecy you're writing with your hands. It will come true not because of magic, but because you repeated it. You repeated the laziness. You repeated the scrolling. You repeated the complaining. And now it's who you think you are. But it's not who you are. It's just who you've practiced being. So practice again. Start a new pattern. You're not broken, you're untrained. Discipline is not a gift. It's a skill. Consistency is not a personality trait. It's a choice. And you must choose every single day to build a life where your habits match your dreams. Because here's the truth that will punch you in the gut. If your habits don't change, your life won't either. No matter how badly you want it, no matter how much you pray for it, no matter how deeply you journal about it, your results are rooted in your rhythms. And if your rhythms are toxic, if they are chaotic, if they are reactive, if they are weak, your life will mirror that weakness back to you in full clarity. So don't ask, what do I want? Ask, what am I training for every day? If you train for distraction, don't be surprised when your focus collapses. If you train for indulgence, don't be shocked when your discipline fades. If you train for mediocrity, don't act surprised when greatness avoids you. You are always becoming something, every day, every moment. The only question is it on purpose? Or are you just drifting, defaulting to comfort, surviving your days instead of sculpting them? You were not born to drift. You were built to design, to shape, to form, to forge your future. And forging requires fire. The fire of doing what's hard, the fire of consistency, the fire of waking up and choosing your vision over your vices, the fire of self-control, the fire of long-term thinking. Because long-term thinking is what separates the amateurs from the masters. Amateurs act based on how they feel. Masters act based on who they are becoming. And the bridge between where you are and who you could be is habit. So if you want to change your life, stop looking outside. Stop looking for better timing. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop asking for motivation. Audit the machine that runs you, your habits, and rebuild it. Rebuild it with intention. Rebuild it with clarity. Rebuild it with purpose. Rebuild mornings that command the day, not chase it. Rebuild routines that ignite your body and brain before the world makes demands. Rebuild inputs that nourish you instead of numbing you. Because your input is your identity. You become what you consume. You echo what you repeat. You live what you allow. So raise your standard. No more just 5 minutes. No more just this once. No more I'll start Monday. Your life isn't waiting for Monday. Your future isn't paused. It's moving with or without you. The question is, are your habits moving with it? Or are they anchoring you to the version of yourself that you say you want to escape? Be honest, because honesty is the first habit of freedom. Then we go deeper into the furnace, where real transformation is forged. Because until you face your habits with ruthless honesty, you will keep telling yourself stories to excuse the stagnation. I'm just tired. I'm just not a morning person. I just need a break. No, what you need is truth. You're not tired. You're undisciplined. You're not unmotivated. You're malnourished, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And you're not confused. You're avoiding clarity because clarity demands action. Because once you know what needs to change, the only thing left is to change it. And that terrifies people. So they bury themselves in distraction, in the ritual of busyness, in the addiction to the comfortable. But let me tell you something sacred. Your comfort zone is a padded cell. It looks safe, it feels soft, but it's a prison. And your habits are the warden. You want freedom? Build the habits that demand freedom. Discipline is freedom. Focus is freedom. Responsibility is freedom. And when your habits align with these, you no longer have to fake confidence. You live it. You no longer chase success. You attract it. You no longer beg the world to notice you. The world can't look away because you become the rare one, the dangerous one, the consistent one, the one who moves forward while others wait for motivation. And let's be clear, you don't need to be extreme, you need to be consistent. It's not about 10-hour workdays. It's about showing up every day with intentional effort. It's not about cutting out everything. It's about removing what steals your focus. It's not about working harder than everyone else. It's about working on the right things longer than most people are willing. Because your habits don't just shape your day, they compound into decades. One habit, one small change, one small standard, raised. That's how it begins. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Read 10 pages. Stretch. Write. Call the client. Take the walk. Eat the fuel, not the feeling. Turn off the noise. Say no. Say yes. Do the rep. Keep the promise. Every one of these is a vote, a line in the sand. And the more you vote, the more you become. Until one day, the old you feels foreign. Until one day, your habits are no longer a fight. They are a force. And that's when you become dangerous. To your excuses, to your old story, to every limit you thought was permanent. But none of this will happen by accident. You have to decide right now that the way you've been living is no longer acceptable. That mediocrity is not your home. That potential with no discipline is still regret. Draw the line, burn the lie, and build the system that serves your purpose. Because habits are just systems. And systems never fail. They produce exactly what they're designed for. If your system is chaos, your result will be struggle. If your system is alignment, your result will be inevitable. So fix the system, the morning, the night, the calendar, the boundaries, the standards, and then protect it with the fury of someone who finally knows their worth. Because no one is coming to save you from the habits that are destroying you quietly. And no one is coming to build the ones that will elevate you daily. That's your job. That's your responsibility. That's your power. And it is power, not the kind you post about, but the kind that pulses through your veins when you do what needs to be done. When you rise without being told, when you execute without applause, when you keep showing up, not because someone's watching, but because you are. That is real power. That is unshakable. That is rare. And when you build habits rooted in that level of integrity, something extraordinary happens. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop giving the lazy voice in your head a seat at the table. You stop letting your moods manage your movements. You stop asking for ease and start demanding excellence. Because by now, you know the truth. Your habits are not just about productivity. They are about identity. They are your way of saying, this is who I am. So who are you becoming? What are you rehearsing every day? Because repetition is reputation. And if you do it enough times, you will believe it's you. You can't outthink bad habits. You have to outbehave them. You can't just want new outcomes. You have to earn them through new patterns. You can't just dream of freedom. You have to discipline your way into it. The results will come, but only after the rhythm becomes real. And yes, there will be days you fall, days you miss, days you break the streak, days where it feels like you're crawling through wet cement just to hold on to progress. Good. That's when the breakthrough is closest. Because discipline doesn't mean never falling, it means never quitting. And habits don't break when life is easy. They forge when life is hard, and you keep going anyway. You keep the promise to yourself, even when the world gives you permission not to. That's the victory no one sees. But that victory builds the life everyone notices later. Because eventually, results speak. Eventually, the compound effect of your habits becomes unignorable. Eventually, the person who simply refused to quit becomes the person everyone wants to become. And when that day comes, when the lights finally hit you, when the recognition arrives, when the success shows up like it was always supposed to, you won't be surprised. Because you'll know how you got there. You'll know it wasn't luck. It wasn't fate. It wasn't overnight. It was repetition. It was resolve. It was rising again and again while the rest fell asleep on their dreams. That's how you win. That's how you build. That's how you rise. One habit at a time. So let's keep going. Let's finish what we started, because that's what builders do. You don't start to impress. You don't begin to be praised. You begin to become. You build because it's who you are becoming that matters more than what you're achieving. And you stay with it long after the applause fades, long after the motivation cools, long after the inspiration wears off, because your life is no longer about chasing moods. It's about choosing mastery. Mastery doesn't show up one day and introduce itself. Mastery arrives quietly after years of repetition, after countless small decisions that the undisciplined called unimportant. But there is nothing unimportant about your habits, because each one is either adding power to your future or stealing momentum from it. Each one is either feeding the identity you want or reinforcing the one you hate. Each one is either making you stronger or slowly taking you out of the game. So ask yourself, and do it without flinching, what am I tolerating in my daily routine that's costing me my destiny? Because tolerance is silent sabotage. The 5 minutes wasted. The bite you said didn't matter. The call you didn't return. The book you didn't finish. The standard you let slip. Just this once. But just this once is the seed of every failure. Just this once is how you lose a decade. Just this once is how legacies are destroyed before they ever get built. You want to live a different life? You must demand different patterns. You must upgrade your expectations. You must audit your actions. You must protect your momentum like it's sacred, because it is. You are not just living. You are compounding. Every moment, every move, every repeated behavior is compounding into something permanent. So decide right now what you want to be permanent. Not just in your results, but in your reputation with yourself. That's the real war. The battle between who you used to be and who you're becoming. And habits are the battleground. You're not fighting others. You're fighting the old you. the one who justified quitting, the one who called discipline obsession, the one who chose comfort over calling, but not anymore. Not now. Because today, you don't need more motivation. You need clarity. Clarity that every decision you make, every behavior you repeat, every standard you hold is creating a ripple effect. One that doesn't just change your day, it changes your life. So raise the standard. Make your habits your allies. Make them sacred. Make them non-negotiable. Make them so bulletproof that not even failure can derail you. Because when your habits are aligned, discipline becomes easier, success becomes expected, and your potential finally becomes real. Then let's go all the way. Let's bring it home. Because this is not just a lesson. It's a line in the sand, a reckoning, a reset, a rebirth. It is the moment where you decide to stop living life by default and start living life by design. You were not born for chaos. You were not born for random. You were not born to repeat the same tired loops just because that's what everyone does. You were born to lead yourself. And leadership starts with habits. The habits of how you think, especially when doubt creeps in. The habits of how you speak, especially when no one is listening. The habits of how you act, especially when it's hard, thankless, boring, or unseen. That's the forge. That's where identity is built, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in celebration, but in the quiet corners of your day, where your decisions whisper the future into form. So what's whispering in your life right now? Is it clarity or confusion? Focus or fragmentation? Vision or just noise? Because your life is listening. And every time you act, it takes note. Every time you hit snooze, life hears it. Every time you ignore your calling, life records it. Every time you settle for a lesser version of yourself, life responds accordingly. But the opposite is also true. Every time you choose the harder path, life honors it. Every time you keep the promise, life magnifies it. Every time you say yes to the version of you that scares you, life expands around it. So don't wait for life to change before you do. You go first. Your habits go first. Your standard goes first. Because the only way to change your results is to change your rhythm. And rhythm is power. Rhythm is momentum. Rhythm is how giants are built not overnight, but over time. You want to make more money? Fix your financial habits. You want to be fit? Fix your physical rituals. You want to be respected? Fix how you treat your time when no one is watching. You want to be free? Then act like someone who deserves to be. Because freedom is not found. It's earned through sweat, through silence, through the steady pounding of the hammer against the iron of discipline. That's what this is. You are forging a self that cannot be shaken. You are welding together identity and action so tightly, they become one. So that when people ask how you got here, you don't need to explain. You show them with your life, with your consistency, with your undeniable results. Because you didn't just know what to do. You did it. While others talked, you trained. While others waited, you built. While others blamed, you owned. And while others hoped, you acted. That's the difference. That's what makes you dangerous. Not your knowledge, but your execution. Not your talent, but your follow-through. Not your dreams, but your habits. Because in the end, the ones who rise, the ones who lead, the ones who truly win, are not the ones with perfect plans. They're the ones who perfected the practice over and over and over again. So rise up now, not with noise, but with resolve. Recommit to your habits. Rebuild your patterns. Redesign your life one repeated action at a time. And let every step say, my habits are working for me. My future is not an accident. And I will not be denied by the person I used to be. Everything in your life, where you are, what you have, who you've become, is the direct reflection of a single hidden force most people never stop to examine. Not your circumstances, not your luck, not your upbringing, but your philosophy. That's right, your personal philosophy, the lens through which you interpret the world, yourself, and every opportunity and challenge is the master architect of your future. Not your boss, not your partner, not your education or background, not even your goals. Because goals without philosophy are like a ship without a compass. Ambition without wisdom is a bullet train with no brakes. Motion without meaning is just noise. You want to change your life? Don't just change your habits. Don't just change your friends. Don't just change your calendar. Change your thinking, your guiding principles, your default beliefs, your non-negotiables about how life works and how you respond to it. Because every decision you make, big or small, is filtered through your philosophy. And if that filter is distorted, broken, or built on excuses, then your future won't be determined by effort. It'll be determined by error. You don't rise to the level of your hustle, you rise, or fall to the level of your understanding. And your understanding comes from the beliefs you've built or borrowed. So let me ask you, who built the blueprint you're following? Was it shaped by thinkers, builders, warriors of truth? Or was it inherited from complainers, cowards, and the comfort obsessed? Because here's the truth. If your life is a reflection, your philosophy is the mirror. If your bank account is inconsistent, your philosophy around money is flawed. If your relationships are shallow, your philosophy around connection is reactive, not intentional. If your energy is drained, your philosophy around discipline and vitality is weak. But the moment you change the way you see, you begin to change the way you move. And that's the beginning of power. Because philosophy isn't theory, it's your operating system. And if your operating system is built on, it's too hard, it's not my fault, success is for other people, then you're running the wrong software for the life you say you want. But if you truly upgrade your personal philosophy to one of ownership, clarity, growth, and truth, then everything starts to shift. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop waiting and you start working. You stop blaming and you start building. Because now you're driven by principle, not pressure. And principle is stronger than pressure every single. Let me give it to you straight. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because their thinking is lazy. They haven't done the deep, brutal, personal work of asking, what do I believe about success? What do I believe about struggle? What do I believe about me? And those unexamined beliefs are running their life quietly, invisibly, destructively. They believe success is luck, so they wait. They believe money is evil, so they sabotage. They believe discipline is unnatural, so they excuse their inconsistency. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But the answer isn't in changing the world, it's in changing you. The world is neutral. Opportunities don't discriminate, but philosophies do. If you believe the game is rigged, you won't play hard. If you believe people are out to get you, you won't trust anyone long enough to build. If you believe effort doesn't matter, you'll give up right before the breakthrough. But if you believe that life responds to growth, if you believe that value creates wealth, if you believe that character outlasts trend, if you believe that your habits shape your future, then suddenly the world starts to cooperate. Not because the rules changed, but because you did. And you changed your philosophy. You see, Jim Rohn said it best. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. That's the real work. That's the deep work. That's the only work that matters in the long run. And that begins with asking, what are the beliefs I choose to live by? Not the ones handed to me by weak people. Not the ones absorbed from culture. Not the ones I picked up when I was afraid. The ones I've tested. The ones I've seen hold strong under pressure. The ones that elevate my character and keep me aligned when everything else shakes. And I'll tell you this, you'll never outperform your philosophy. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll ruin every good thing you touch. If you believe success requires betrayal, you'll never trust yourself to win. If you believe other people have the power, you'll never unlock your own. But flip that. If you believe excellence is a choice, you'll make it. If you believe obstacles are lessons, you'll study them. If you believe character matters more than image, you'll become unstoppable. So here's the challenge. Don't just upgrade your resume. Upgrade your rules. Upgrade your principles. Upgrade the questions you ask yourself. Upgrade the philosophy that drives every step you take. Because when your philosophy becomes clear, consistent, and powerful, your life starts to match it. Not instantly, but inevitably, because the outside always catches up to the inside. And once the inside is unshakable, the outside becomes undeniable. Because when you've rebuilt the foundation, not your routine, not your goals, not your image, but your philosophy, you no longer need to force results. You attract them. You no longer need to beg for breakthroughs. You become one. Because a man or woman with a solid personal philosophy is no longer swayed by what happens around them. They move according to what's happening within them. They're not emotional wrecks in the face of resistance. They're grounded. They're not desperate for applause. They're driven by alignment. They're not addicted to instant wins. They're committed to long-term wisdom. And that kind of person becomes magnetic. They walk differently. They speak with clarity. They listen with purpose. They act with precision. They radiate peace not because life is perfect, but because they've perfected the way they see life. That's the magic of philosophy. Not fake optimism, not blind hustle, but living truths forged through awareness, ownership, and hard-won experience. You want to build wealth? Your philosophy around value, time, discipline, and delayed gratification better be tight. You want deep relationships? Your philosophy about trust, communication, responsibility, and vulnerability must be mature. You want influence? Your philosophy about integrity, humility, and consistency has to be unbreakable. Everything rests on this. Because in the end, it's not what happens to you that determines your future. It's not what you do once or twice that shapes your destiny. It's how you think every day. It's the values you return to when you're tired. It's the beliefs you live by when nobody's watching. It's the mental frameworks you carry into every room, every call, every conversation. That's where the real battle is fought. And most people lose that battle because they never knew it was happening. They try to change their income without changing their thinking. They try to attract better people without becoming a better person. They try to find peace while believing chaos is inevitable. They try to win the war on the outside with a philosophy that guarantees defeat on the inside. But not you. You're here for something different. You're here to become dangerously aware. Aware of what you believe. Aware of what's driving you. Aware of what you've accepted without question. Aware of what you need to upgrade, not in the world, but in yourself. Because here's what the great ones know. If your philosophy is right, the path will reveal itself. If your philosophy is strong, the storms will shape you, not destroy you. If your philosophy is true, your results will take care of themselves. So stop treating philosophy like it's a luxury for thinkers. It's a requirement for builders. You don't build an empire from emotion. You build it from principle, from internal laws that don't change when your mood does, from beliefs that guide your hand when everything feels uncertain, from truth that overrides temptation. Truth like, discipline beats motivation. Responsibility is freedom. Growth is more important than comfort. And purpose is always more powerful than pressure. These are not cute quotes. They are codes. And if you adopt them, if you own them, you'll never have to chase alignment again. You will be alignment. Your actions will flow. Your energy will focus. Your direction will clarify. And your life will start working not by luck, but by law. By the natural law of cause and effect. The cause, a personal philosophy rooted in truth. The effect, a life that reflects who you became. Because in the end, your life doesn't respond to what you hope for. It responds to who you are. And who you are is shaped by what you believe. So get clear, get ruthless, get intentional, Audit your beliefs like your future depends on it, because it does. Ask, where did this idea come from? Is it true or just popular? Does it make me stronger or weaker? Does it lead to freedom or fear? Is it based in truth or comfort? And when you find a broken piece of your philosophy, replace it. Not with something trendy, not with something that sounds good on social media, but with something that works. Because the proof of a philosophy isn't how it sounds in theory, it's what it produces in reality. And if your philosophy doesn't produce strength, clarity, peace, direction, discipline, and purpose, it's not true enough. It's not strong enough. It's not yours yet. So make it yours. Write it. Refine it. Live it. Then watch how your life aligns around it like gravity. Not because life got easier, but because you got wiser. Because you stopped floating with trends and started building on truth. And now life bends toward you. Because when life bends toward you, it's not magic. It's not the universe doing you a favor. It's not coincidence or chance. It's alignment. It's the result of a human being who finally said, I will no longer live by accident. I will live by design. And design is rooted in philosophy. Not just what you believe on good days, but what you hold on to in chaos. Not just what sounds nice in theory, but what survives the weight of your reality. Because let me tell you something. Real life doesn't care what you say you believe. It only responds to what you actually do. So if your philosophy says, I value health, but your actions say comfort food and skipped workouts, then health isn't part of your philosophy, it's part of your fantasy. If your philosophy says, I believe in growth, but your life is built around avoiding challenge, then growth is not your truth, it's your costume. And the world sees through it. But when your philosophy becomes embodied, when your beliefs become habits, when your convictions become discipline, when your standards become automatic, you stop needing motivation altogether. Because now, you are the motivation. You are the standard. You walk into a room, and people feel it not because you're loud, but because you're centered. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you've built something inside that can't be shaken by anyone. That's the power of philosophy lived out. It's quiet. It's steady. It's relentless. And it multiplies. Your clarity gives others permission to clear their fog. Your discipline reminds others of their potential. Your truth spoken not just in words, but in how you live, becomes a torch that lights up every space you enter. You're not trying to be inspiring. You're simply aligned. And alignment is magnetic. That's what this world is starving for. Not more information, not more hype, but more embodied wisdom. More people whose lives match their mouths. More people who mean what they say and live what they believe. More people who have a clear why, a grounded how, and an unshakable what for. Because when you know your what, for your purpose, your mission, your core, then no circumstance, no betrayal, no detour can take you off the path for long. You might fall, but you rise with more force. You might doubt, but you return to truth faster. You might face resistance, but you walk through it taller. Because your foundation is internal. Your philosophy leads the way. And when philosophy leads, fear follows behind. Not because fear disappears, but because it doesn't get to drive anymore. Your faith does. Your conviction does. Your clarity does. And you become the rarest kind of human. The kind who knows who they are and lives it relentlessly, unapologetically, quietly powerful. That's the new standard. That's the person who wins, not just at work or money or influence, but in life, wins peace, wins respect, wins self-trust, wins alignment between what they do, what they believe, and who they're becoming. And if you've listened this far, you already know this isn't about tips and tricks. This isn't about hacks. This isn't about looking successful. It's about being someone no obstacle can bend, no lie can weaken, no distraction can buy. Because your mind is yours now. Your soul is anchored. And your path, no matter how unpredictable, is yours to walk. And that is power most people will never know because they're still begging for someone to hand it to them. But you built it. You rewrote the code. You redesigned the map. You chose truth over trends. You chose principles over popularity. You chose wisdom over comfort. You chose to stop letting the world shape your philosophy and started shaping your world through it. And now, your life is starting to mirror it. Your outcomes are starting to align, not because you forced anything, but because you finally understood. Your personal philosophy, not your environment, not your talent, not your status, is the major factor in how your life turns out. So protect it, refine it, build it like your future depends on it, because it does. And never forget this truth. The world will reflect your philosophy long after it forgets your name. But you'll remember because you lived it. And that is the legacy.